Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to deftalks. Today, I have with me someone really special, Lieutenant Imran Chowdhury, BEM, a writer, author, philanthropist, son of a freedom fighter of Bangladesh, and of course, yes, someone who's also served in the Bangladesh army. Let's try and get some insights as to what's happening in that country from someone who belongs to that country. Namaskar, sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here, and looking forward for your views on what's happening in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Adi, for having me. I'm really honored and humbled. It gives me an immense pleasure to actually talk to you, talk to someone who are very interested and very keen to know about what is happening in Bangladesh. I mean, looking through the prism of 1971, the bondage, the friendship, the camaraderie that we have built, and it looks like it's eroding as the day progresses. But I think time will talk about it. But let's find out, and I'll be more than happy to give you my side of the story. Thank you.
So tell me something. So how do you see the situation in Bangladesh today? I mean, it's quite precarious. There's a lot of violence on the streets. There's a whole lot of governance problems. There's of course natural disasters which are coming in because this is the season for it. How do you see what's happening in the country?
Thank you for the question. The issue that is prevailing in Bangladesh, it's an euphoria, I would say. Um, Following the catastrophic issues that prevailed in Bangladesh for quite some time, I think it was ominous. There was something brewing in the offing, but I think the government, the apparatus at large, has failed to understand or gazed wrongly because there was a lot of issues those were prevailing amongst the masses and while you have this governance problem, you try to oppress and suppress the people. This kind of explosive outburst is bound to happen. It has happened over the centuries all over the world, and Bangladesh is very susceptible to fall prey into the same issues or same problem as it's happening now. But then, having said that, at times I feel a little bit disturbed that hope this movement of ousting the regime of Sheikh Hasina don't go out of hand and Bangladesh start falling into the hands of rogue elements. So that is my dichotomy. That's my fear, and that's what I'm worried about.
So Bangladesh has had a lack of leadership, and I passed 2 weeks since the time the issues have happened in Bangladesh. I've spent some time reading about the country, and what I read about the short history of this very very new nation is that there is a severe lack of leadership within the country. After Mujibur Rahman went in, it went into a complete tizzy, and even that also that particular time was also quite tumultuous because it was a new setup. Everything was starting new. Would you agree with this leadership question that I'm looking at today, and which is also common amongst the newly formed nations after the Second World War? We've seen this as a pattern, but Bangladesh has had issues in terms of its leadership, which has not really put it onto the tracks of development, apart from the past about 8-10 years. But there's been problems as far as that is concerned: constant coups, assassination attempts, and this and that and the other. How do you kind of fit this into perspective for us?
Yeah, well, to be honest, looking back from 1972 onwards, I must say that I agree with you. There was this lack of leadership. There was this lack of acumen. There was this lack of administration, and that was huge at the backdrop of the poverty. The Bangladesh started with penniless state of affairs. The Pakistanis actually stole everything, all the riches of East Pakistan, all the golds, all the diamonds, all the valuable items. They have shipped abroad to Pakistan. And when we started, literally, we didn't have any dollar in our government funds. Basically, the Central Bank of Bangladesh started with India lending some dollars to start off with, India giving us the first aircraft to run our Bangladesh Airlines, Bangladesh Biman. So yes, we started with zero, but then uh, we had bouts of bad lucks in the sense that we didn't have any communications. The country could absolutely standing in still in 1972. Uh, Almost all the major railway bridges were blown up by the heinous Pakistan army. All the road bridges were disturbed and demolished. So the whole country literally was standing in still. I owe a great deal of gratitude to the Indian Army, Indian Armed Forces, Indian engineers to fix the railways in 1972. We had ferries going from Meghna River. We had ferries going on the Pakshi Bridge. All the big railway bridges those were built in the 1910, 1920, when the time of the British period they were built. So they were all blown up by explosive by the Pakistan army just to disrupt and make the country down to its hilt, basically. So from there, these bridges were built or repaired by the Indian Army. We owe a great deal of gratitude for that. I personally do, because I have seen these things are happening in front of my eyes. And then the roads. So with that start, we literally started from zero. And Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, he was an excellent leader, excellent igniter of
Yeah.
synergy in the minds and bodies of the people. But I would say, being myself an army officer, having 40 years of experience on geopolitics and world history at large, I would say there was shortcomings on his part. He was a fantastic leader, but I don't think he was a very good administrator, to say the
Mhm.
least.
Mhm.
From then onwards, whatever we had a lot of cynicism, a lot of coteries, a lot of highly ambitious people who wanted Bangladesh at the behest of their own ambitions to have it as their own country, either running as a dictatorial democratic government or a military dictatorship. So how do you just imagine, out of 53 years of the existence of the country, more than 60% of our 70% of our time has been really administered by rogue elements who just wanted to have a piece of Bangladesh for themselves, not giving no pleasure or no cognizance to the aspirations of the people. So we have come through a very precarious road, and this has exacerbated the problem. The youth of today has really blown it, and they have proven yet again that don't play with the fate of the people of Bangladesh.
That indeed, sir. I mean, of course, on the principle of it, when the youth is demanding something good for themselves, good future, good life, there is nothing wrong in that. How do you see what happened recently, sir? Bangladesh recently, in the past about 20 years, has seen the BNP in power with the rise of radicalism in the country. We've seen the Jamaat taking over to a large extent. Uh, we'll talk about the India and the relations abroad. I just want to focus inside first. How do you see the BNP, and of course after that Sheikh Hasina's Awami League coming in the past about 20 years, and how have they shaped Bangladesh? Their politics shaped Bangladesh. I would say post 2008-9 period.
2008-9 period is not the BNP period. BNP period started in 1991 after the
Hmm.
fall of the dictator General Ershad, and they continued till 1996.
Six.
Then, relinquishing the power, there was a kerfuffle went
Yeah.
on, and after that, in election, I think the Awami League government came into power, and they lost the election in 2001. And again, 2001, BNP came to power with the help of Jamaat, and they, in fact, did install ministers from the Jamaat and other rogue elements who were anti-Bangladesh Liberation War. But then that also went on in a bad shape, because in 2007 we had this military interim government
Mm.
running the country for 2.5 years, with a vile intention of grabbing the power once again. But I guess they failed. But the plight of the people remains where it was 53 years ago. Although there is a massive magnitude of development that took place, but at the cost of the gagging the voice of people, not having the right to choose who they want us to govern, and there was no matter what, there was no freedom of speech. So
Yeah.
look, we live in a 21st century. We have seen the fall of USSR, Socialist Russian Republic, or Socialist Russia. We have seen the wall of Berlin coming down. We have seen the breakup of EU, and we have seen everything. So this these are very infectious things that can
Yeah.
go in all over the world. So that has
Yeah.
happened. But having said that, from the history and from the informations that we read in the newspapers, and there is a lot of evidence that during the last government of Bangladesh Nationalist Party, vis-a-vis in conjunction with the Jamaat Islami, in from 2001 to
Mm.
2007, there were a lot of unscrupulous activities went on, even interfering and tampering with the peace and tranquility of the Seven Sisters. There were these incidents of 10 trucks of arms and ammunitions being smuggled, and they were luckily caught. I mean, look, Bangladesh, we are predominantly a very peace living, loving race. We are not cantankerous. We don't like, we have never, our horses, we don't have horse, but our soldiers from the millennia to millennia has never ever invaded any country. We are not a militant race. And if someone tries to convert us into those, they will miserably fail. The people will not accept, because we are very poetic, loving, and we like the nature, and we don't want to obliterate the status quo. So there were problems, but Bangladesh as a whole doesn't pose any threat to anyone.
So when Sheikh Hasina recently took power, I'm not talking about this one, the previous election, where when she put the Khalida Zia and all that behind bars. Um, People were very happy. They saw the development coming in. They saw the money coming in. The world rankings of Bangladesh kind of improved. Everybody said, this is now coming up to be a middle income country. And everybody said, okay, fair enough. They've got their issues just like any other country, but they're growing. People are happy. Do you agree with that sort of an assessment which the world kind of had of Bangladesh, sir?
Yes, there was. I mean, to be frank with you, the magnitude of development that has taken place since the takeover of the Army League government in 2009, it is absolutely mind-boggling. It has taken Bangladesh to a different road of prosperity. There is no doubt about it. I mean, Bangladesh has again risen. I mean, bear in mind, in second century, when Rome was ruled by the Roman Empire, there was big argument going on about why Rome is sending so much of gold to a country they don't even know it is to be called
Mhm.
Gangetria. So in
Mhm.
second century Bangladesh, our ancestors were exporting cotton robes to the Senate, for the senators of Rome. And now, after about 2020 years later, we are being the most smallest country in the map. You need literally a microscope to find us in the world map. We are the largest garment exporter. And this is not any government's achievement. This is the people. This is the power of the people of Bangladesh, those
Mhm.
businessmen who has taken enormous risk of, just imagine, I live in United Kingdom. When the interest rate goes up from 2% to 2.5, we start shivering. How am I going to pay my mortgage? And those businessmen in Bangladesh, they're taking loans to set up a garment factory with 18 to 19% of interest rate. Just imagine how much powerful, how great they are, how brave they are to take that magnitude of loan, and yet again prove to the world that the people of Bangladesh can become number one garment exporter in the world. It makes me proud every single moment when I think about it. But at the back of it, there was a huge corruption being perpetuated by the Army League regime, and which I don't accept, because this was really, really painful to watch. The tyranny that she unleashed on the people, the way she gagged the voice of the people, way she has really, really confined people, my friends, my colleagues, unnecessarily, just because if I voice against you something, it does not mean that you will confiscate my freedom. You will confine me into a room underground and take away all my liberties, all my civil rights. For what? Just because I voiced some opposition to your policies. That can't be right. So that is what the outcome of today has evaporated and culminated into this outburst. And of course, you have to bear in mind that that has gone a bit out of hand. These students should be reined in, and they should not really, really go into reincarnating French revolutions, the storming of the Bastille. So yeah, that was not right, but this was bound to happen. And Sheikh Hasina's regime was not the bed of roses for the people of Bangladesh. I must say this.
What about the BMP, sir, who's now taken charge? I mean, people say Mohammed Yunus is in charge. Of course, there's a whole lot of people really don't know. I mean, he's sitting in the chair, but who's actually running things? It's difficult to kind of figure out at the moment because there are shots being fired all around the place. One part of the government says one thing. Yesterday was an interesting thing, you know. So when a lot of flooding came across in that region, there are agreements between India and Bangladesh of real-time flooding data being given and stuff like that. So one part had heavy rainfall. So one part of the government started saying India is doing this on purpose. The second part of the government is no, 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 no. India is not doing this on purpose. This is because of rains. That tells you like there is a lot of you know in disconnect between the setup that is kind of coming, and that is expected. Before going on to the street, what is happening there, I want you to kind of help us understand what kind of a structure is are we seeing in Bangladesh today.
Thank you. Well, I can assure you one thing. I mean, I'm not hearing anything because I'm not in communication with anyone who are running the state of affairs in Bangladesh. I live in UK. I'm a elected councillor here. I run a charity. I have my other things to do. So I keep an eye on Bangladesh because I come from Bangladesh, and this is my country. We poured enough bucket load of blood at the altar of independence. My father being a freedom fighter, my brother is one of the martyrs who were butchered on the Eid day of 1971 by this heinous Pakistan army. So yes, every time I utter the name Bangladesh, my heart bleeds constantly. So yes, but to answer your question, Adi, I don't think BNP is anywhere near the corridors of power at this moment. It is unlikely that BNP will be in any position to have a stake, even if the interim government gives an election, because BNP, I don't think it will be accepted by the mass, will be accepted by the voters, will be accepted by the present status quo because of their shenanigans of the past. This is my view. They are not walking at the moment in the corridors of the governance of Bangladesh as of today. The election, if it's free and fair, if the people chooses BNP, that be it. I have nothing to say because we fought for people's right, and if the people of Bangladesh wants to vote BNP, so be it. But at this moment, I don't see BNP is calling the shots. It is the interim government. And bear in mind, I may sound a bit selfish, but no matter what, some 40 years ago, I was commissioned in this army. I grew up in this army atmosphere. My father was a freedom fighter. He was one of this. He was running fourth sector as the first Subedar Major of fourth sector BDF, and then raised 18 East Bengal, and I was commissioned in 14 East Bengal. So yes, it's something very close to my heart. But I would say one thing is Bangladesh Army at the moment is 100% indigenous army. All the officers, all the soldiers, all the JCOs, and everyone serving there are purely Bangladeshi
Yeah.
origin. There is
Previously,
no
they were
outside.
Pakistani origin.
Yes, there's no outsiders who has this, the umbilical cord was never cut off, so that umbilical cord has been cut off. So this army, today's army, is 100% indigenous army, and they will stand shoulder to shoulder with people, and there will be nothing untowardly will happen at the watch of Bangladesh army. So to answer your question, the revolutionaries have done a good job. They have captured the imagination of the people, but I would urge them to not to follow the path of French Revolution, because that would be not be the right thing. We cannot hamper the progress and the growth of Bangladesh at this moment. If we disrupt it, then the poverty will come in. To answer your question about the floods, look, we have this allergy about India. Uh, I think it is due to many factors, but the main factor is there is, I think, some school of thought within the country. They are always negating India vis-a-vis the Hindu regime, Hindu country. There is this anti-religion hatred being mongered amongst the people, but these are temporary. I'll tell you something. When my father served in the border security force, the East Pakistan Rifle and East Bangladesh Rifle from 1958 for 30 long years, and he was one of the senior most officers of the indigenous BDR and EPR. So we used to know that when there was a crisis of green chili, when the crisis of Ramadan, when there's the onion shortage, when the rice shortage, even the ministers of Bangladesh, the prime minister, the commerce minister used to phone up and say, "Can you guys go a bit loose on the border, because if is the green chili, hari mirchi don't come from India, then the prices will rocket and people will not be able to buy it. So let let them come from India to keep the equilibrium of the prices." So look, no matter how much we try, we are bonded in history, we are bonded in culture, we are bonded in many other things. So India and Bangladesh, this connection, this camaraderie, the friendship is for perpetuity. You can't just take it out and run Bangladesh as if you have no neighbors. It cannot happen. This euphoria will evaporate when the reality will hit them hard. About the flood, this is always the case. I don't know the truth. But then again, if you look at the scientific proportion and aspect of it, if the dam is accumulating a lot of water on the home side of the bank, then these banks will literally completely collapse because of the pressure of water. And we know from science, water flows downwards. So India probably has no choice but to open the floods to survive. Otherwise, say, imagine if
It'll be worse, actually. If the
if
dam
the
breaks, it's going to be
yeah,
worse.
if the dam broken, then that will be a catastrophic problem for Bangladesh. It will take everything in its path. So we have to think rationally. Look, end of the day, no human in the world wants to harm another human, unless that human has lost the fragrance and the quality of being a good human. So I cannot see myself that India would do that kind of thing. Look, bear in mind, you have to look through the prism of 1971. I was a refugee in India, in a refugee camp in Tripura, in Agartala. I owe my life to the people of India, trust me. Had they not given us this shelter, Had they not allowed our freedom fighters to open camps, had they not allowed to, the remotest of the places where we lived, there was no roads, nothing, but every second day, trucks load of bull carts load of reliefs and rations used to come to our refugee camp. And that exercise in itself is one of the biggest humanitarian exercise anywhere in the world has taken place. So look, if India has been so generous, so magnanimous to the people of Bangladesh in 1971, I don't see India would harm Bangladesh in this way. This is absolutely beggars belief. I don't believe that.
it's
Personally,
it's
I
it's
can't
good
believe
amount
it.
of politics. It's good amount of politics and it's good amount of narrative, sir. But I'd like to ask you this because we see a large element of, as you mentioned, that there is that Hindu thing which is always there, and there's a large element of radical Islamism which we are seeing on the streets. I have reports of the Al Qaeda flags being flying around, and I've seen images and videos of that, which is a bit dangerous, not for the region, but for Bangladesh people itself, because I don't think that's very good. We've seen what's happening in Afghanistan and how that thing has gone across. But one of the things that we kind of see is a huge amount of picking out and hitting Hindus, which has been seen now recently, and this was happening. This happened in previous instances as well, and it's happening pretty much now. Now it is coming out because of social media. Everybody's kind of aware about it, and I'm in touch with various groups inside Bangladesh who actually on both sides. One of the student leader, literally yesterday, I was talking to him. I don't want to name where he is and stuff, so just getting in touch because I talk about it, so people get in touch with me. He said, "Sir, we started with a different purpose, and today what we see in our streets, we are ashamed of it." So here is one person with us. I don't know what the size of the group is. I've also got threats from Bangladesh saying, "Okay, you're talking too much. We'll hammer your head and stuff like that." So that's the either side. But what we see is a religiosity taking over the streets of Bangladesh. Is that something which concerns the people at large, sir? Is that something that concerns people like you who are, of course, if I may, the diaspora of Bangladesh?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, look, my ancestral village is called Gopinathpur, which is
Ah,
named after Gopi, right?
mm,
So although I have never lived in my village, only maybe altogether, maybe a month, 30 days altogether in my life. I'm 64-year old. So, but I had the opportunity to leave the nearest town of my village. That's called Brahmanbaria. Is probably the place which was meant for the Brahmins. So look, we lived side by side. I had friends, still they are my friends. We went to school with, and then the liberation war happened, and we have um, uh, never been to uh, uh, never been to go there and live there, but I still keep in touch with them. So there is I have heard and I have witnessed that even very high ranking officials of the police force once commented in front of me in London that minority Hindus are taking over the majority jobs of Bangladesh in the higher ranks. I said, how is it possible? So I could see that his magnitude of hatred for the Hindus. I was absolutely shocked. I was absolutely shocked, and so if an high officials who is a Bangladesh civil service officer, if he can have that kind of rhetoric, that kind of feelings in his mind, then imagine what about a man on the street, Joe Blogg. So yes, I would agree that there is, I think, wrong kind of message being promoted amongst the masses that there is anti Hindu or anti other religion. I don't think the Christians or the Buddhists are also susceptible. I think they're susceptible in the
Very
same
susceptible. Nobody, funnily speaking, at least India is talking about the Hindus.
way. Mm,
There is no one in the world talking about the Buddhists. There is no one
no.
in the world that's talking about the Christians.
Mm,
It's terrible. I mean,
yes.
I know of incidents I don't want to mention on air, but I'll send you this document that I received from Bangladesh. It'll be
Yes.
quite
I mean,
amazing, sir.
I have a very good friend of mine who is a Christian. His name is Michael. I'm not going to tell the rest of the name. We grew up together. I still remember on the 15th of August 1975, him and I were listening to uh, Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation ka Bidesh Vibhag. There was a radio from India, and
Mm.
Sholay was released that day, and we both were lying down and listening, and suddenly we came to know the leader of the country was assassinated. So he's a he's a
1975.
good friend of mine, but they're living in huge fear in Bangladesh at the moment. But I will say one thing, Adi, trust me. At large, we are not communal. We have a fantastic friendship. Even if you see a Hindu in the street, a Muslim guy will always address him as Dada. So this is normal camaraderie we have. Okay, but there are always this rogue element. They peddle hatred. They will always do it, but I don't think they will be successful. But one thing I would say, that in the villages level, there are powerful people who would like to oust the Hindus and grab their lands. So that could be one element. And I'm sure under the leadership of Professor Yunus and the administration, of course, vis-a-vis the army is absolutely um, concentrated in every single towns and small townships and subdivisions and districts, and even police station level. So they will actually stop that happening. But then again, there will always be one or two unwanted events or occurrence that will happen, which might which might be quite detrimental. So
You
yeah,
know,
we have to be very, very careful.
the one thing that we are seeing is a lack of support for Dr. Yunus and Professor Yunus. As a matter of fact, what we see yesterday, day for yesterday, all the statements, political statements that are coming out, that this is not what we wanted, and so this is something that are we looking at another huge uprising again? Because the if he doesn't have a structure of his own, he's just one person with a collation of probably technocrats who's sitting and doing stuff. How much of a connect does he have with the people? There's a huge amount of problems in that particular aspect. Eh, do you think this thing can stabilize? Because a lot of analysis is happening both in India and of course the West, uh, about the longevity of the current setup.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
The
Hello, Adi?
longevity of the Yeah, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, go on.
So what do you think is the longevity of the current setup, sir?
Your guess is as good as mine. But well, Professor Yunus has done a fantastic thing by giving the lifeline to the poverty-stricken women and men of the villages. But Bangladesh is a different kettle of fish. To run the administration, I don't think he ever had any opportunity to walk in the corridor of power or administration, and I don't know his acumen, how he will manage it. Uh, then the problem that is happening is um, the students will try and gravitate, and they will call the shots. Then that could be a impending issue. I'm just predicting. It can be. I could be completely wrong. Correct me if I am. But behind everything, bear in mind there is a very strong element who has always stood fast in the past, but now is very different because we have a people's army now, and very highly esteemed by the people. And I don't think the army has no intention of doing what the predecessors have done. But this army will actually fortify the interim government by giving them the help. Thereby, we need to root out a lot of issues that has prevailed: the corruption, the land grabbing, the taking away the freedom of speech. All of that need to be rectified. And of course, we have to overhaul the total administration and the modus operandi, if I may say so, for which I think we ought to give enough time to Professor Yunus and his interim government. There would be people who would be wanting election overnight, but if you give the election, it will go back to the normal, what quid pro quo kind of situation will prevail again. I think we ought to give the time so that we can rectify, we can unify, and also do some work which can, modernize the governance of the country and put practices in place which will literally control the magnitude of corruption and abuse of power that had been prevailing in the country. If they can achieve that, then it's a huge thing. And I have no idea whether or not the administration managed or run by Professor Yunus will have that freedom to do that. Will the stakeholders and the international authorities will allow them to run for being unelected for such a long time? These are all matter of speculation. But yes, I can see that there is lack of harmony, lack of cohesion, and lack of coordination amongst the players who are now running the country's
Yeah.
affairs.
Just a last question about the army, sir, since you mentioned that, and we will obviously keep in touch and try and get you back on the platform once again. We heard reports, and this was again reported by quite a bit of, uh, you know, off mainstream reporters in Bangladesh, that the ground level of the army, the young soldiers, and the JCOs and stuff kind of told the higher ups that, listen, we're not wanting to do this anymore. There was a protest where they wore black bands. Then there was a protest where they wore black ribbons under their boots. There was a protest where they actually tied up red ribbons to their guns. So that all was happening at the back end. We saw images of this in the last 10 days before Sheikh Hasina's departure. We How do you kind of put that across? Has the army leadership come into a lot of pressure from the bottom up, or is it the influence of outside parties within the army? What is it that you're seeing in that aspect, sir?
No, no, I don't know actually. I have no idea what you're saying,
Hmm.
because bear in mind, the only person I perhaps know face to face is the existing chief of army staff, um, General Walker. I think
Walker.
he's the last gentleman whom I have seen whilst I was in service. He was also in service. Other than that, I have no one who serves presently in the army is personally known to me. No.
Hmm.
But having said that, I don't talk to the army because I don't know anyone who are serving. See, what you are asking, um, I'll be honest with you, there was resentment in the army during the last government. There was resentment, there was marginalization, there was deracinations, there were, favoritisms, and they could see that things are not running. Bear in mind, I myself, or the soldiers, all the officers who come in the army, we serve the army because we want to protect the nation. We want to see the country running accordingly. We give our sweat and blood for this country. And we don't want to see that things going wrong, pear shaped. So there was perhaps huge resentment within the ranks and the files. There is this thing that I need to tell you. It's Bangladesh Army is officers are very, very highly trained, and the rigorous what do you call the induction and the trainings are something that shapes them to be absolutely internationally acclaimed officers. But there is this problem: is most of the soldiers come from the villages, so their level of IQ and the officers' level of IQ, there is a huge gap. But this was there always, because I think Bangladesh Army need to recruit soldiers, sergeants, and junior commissioned officer from the villages, not from the villages, from the towns, who would be accustomed to the modern developments of the world, the internet, the qualifications, the knowledge and scientific knowledges. But a village is still very remote in
Mm.
Bangladesh, so that is a disparity of IQ gap in between the ranks and the files and the officers. But that is we need to look at it a different perspective maybe. But as a whole, I can tell you, look, Bangladesh being the most smallest country, we are serving the United Nations peacekeeping force. We are the biggest, one of the biggest and the largest contributors. United Nations peacekeeping force is paying Bangladesh soldiers, officers a lot of money for the last 30 years. Had our boys and officers been callous or unprofessional, and an institution, one of the most highly acclaimed institution in the world, United Nations, would not be employing Bangladesh Army. So to answer your question, Army, there are only three commanders in the Army: a platoon commander, battalion commander, and the Army commander. So anybody else, they're commanders, but they're not the commanders. So I think Bangladesh Army would not do what has happened in the past. The soldiers are so loyal to the officers. I mean, I owe my life to the soldiers, what they have done during my short span of service. I pay a lot of homages to my soldiers of my 14 East Bengal regiment. That's the regiment I served, because I have seen them how loyal they are, and how how respectful they are to the officers. So these things is not going to happen, and I don't think there was any showdown by anybody. Army marches with the command of the officers, and the officers are genuinely patriotic. They would listen. I mean, who pays for the wages of the officers and the army? That we have to understand, and I'm sure Bangladesh Army understands, and they are not eyeing for anything else. They just want tranquility, peace, and prosperity, because if we prosper, we all will prosper together. So that is what the essence of the day. And I don't think there was any showdown by junior officers. It doesn't happen in Bangladesh Army. Bangladesh Army is very orthodox army, which listens to his officers still, and junior officers are good as gold. They are absolutely the finest human beings that you can come across. Until and unless you mingle and mix with a Bangladeshi officer or a soldier, you will always have a different view. But I don't think Bangladesh would step to that. And I'm very proud that I was once upon a time a member of that beautiful organization, the most disciplined organization. It has shaped my life, what I'm doing today. I mean, had I not served in Bangladesh Army, I couldn't have been probably receiving the British Queen's honor, British Empire Medal, because of my discipline, because what I've inculcated as an officer, as a cadet, as an adjutant, as a quartermaster, as an instructor in Bangladesh Army. That has perhaps shaped me who I am today. And I owe a great deal of gratitude to Bangladesh Army, how it has made me a man where I stand tall in every society that I go to. I owe a great deal of gratitude to Bangladesh Army. Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that time, and I really appreciate you taking all the time and helping us understand your perspective of what's happening there. Pleasure to actually have you on the platform, and hope to see you back very soon again, sir. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
I'm
much.
really honored. Adi, thank you. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. थोड़े से I'll take some guests, some questions from you guys. Of course, you guys, you know, a lot of you might disagree with what he said, but please understand we need to take some, you know, different perspective भी लेना पड़ता है यार. Always remember that. क्योंकि क्या होता है ना, you must look at situations from different angles to understand how people are thinking. ठीक है, then only you will understand. Now here is a gentleman, probably he didn't know the ground realities. That's fine, that's perfectly all right, but we need to listen. ठीक है, जो उन्होंने हिस्ट्री बताई हमको वो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग थी. तो जरा पहले वीडियो को लाइक करिए, सब्सक्राइब करिए. लेट मी यू नो you let me kind of request all of you to somebody saying take perspective from ISIS. Shubham Sharma ji, if you know somebody from ISIS, let me know. I'll take an interview. I have no problems. Remember that. Okay? Don't close your mind, because until unless you understand what's happening the other day from other side, from all directions, you will never be able to find a solution. ये चीजें हमेशा देखना. And diplomacy में and foreign policy में, one of the biggest things that you need to do is understand the other side's perspective, no matter you agree with it or disagree. Let's please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, yes, आप लोग इस channel की तरफ contribute कर सकते हैं using the QR code or PayPal or super sticker or super chats. I'll take a few questions here and there. Rajendra ji, thank you, and Ashok Kohli ji, thank you so much for your becoming members. Pranay Kumar ji, thank you. Bangladesh is not the problem, Islam is. We are realizing that very clearly. You're absolutely right. Gumnami Babaji, your solution for Hindus facing a Bangladesh jihadis. Sir, I've actually done a complete show on this where I have told you how to kind of, what all does India needs to do. I've given military details, I've given non-military details, how to kind of fix the situation. तो उसके बारे में तो बात कर ही चुके हैं हम लोग. Priest to Mars, thank you so much. Greetings, Lieutenant Sir. What's your assessment of CCP's influence about Bangladesh armed forces? Any, if any at all, such as doctrine, equipment, like that? Firstly, let me just say this: I don't actually fully agree with what he said about the Bangladeshi army and its integrity, because itne sare coups in so many years does not speak well. इतने सारे coups अगर आपके हों, 29 coups in what 40-50 years, that means every 2 years आपकी army आपके against में coup कर रही थी. So I don't really agree with that, but that's fine. He has the freedom of having his perspective. He's obviously sitting in the West. आपको सुनना चाहिए, क्योंकि यही पता चलता है आपको कि क्या दोनों तरफ का गेम चल रहा है. ठीक है. ओके, नारायण साहब कहते हैं बांग्लादेश हैज बीन बैंक्ड बाय जमातीज इन अमेरिका. यू आर एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट सर. That Hasina made Bangladesh prosperous, but what now? Do Bangladeshis want to become the next Pakistan? Please enlighten. I think, there was a gentleman from Bangladesh who was here. We should have asked him, what do you want to do? वो धमकी शमकी मार रहा था, but one thing must understand, we must ask them what do they actually want to do. All right, a few more. Let's take a couple more questions. Thank you to Ragnarokji for recognizing the fact that it takes some time. I wanted to listen to the other side as well. मैंने बोला चलो एक शो करके देखते हैं कहते क्या है लोग, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. Let's listen. Even if you don't agree with the person, it's nothing wrong with listening. So that's perfectly all right. Okay. That's what you do in diplomacy as well. There is massive flood in Tripura because of heavy rains. Yeah, it's actually, the situation is pretty bad, and as a matter of fact, you kind of see वहाँ पर जो डैम गेट्स और ये सब खुले हैं, that is because automatic water release. And as a matter of fact, जो ये बांग्लादेशी रो रहे हैं कि हमने ये सब करा है, वो करा है, करा है, वो करा है, they must understand they get real time data about all sorts of things. So the real time data they should have used for their own benefit, where they didn't. Why are the Hindus running away from Bangladesh? Do you want all of them to be killed by jihadis? That's a strong question. Of course, nobody wants that. I don't know anybody else's perspective, but I don't think that will happen. Okay? Remember that will not happen. Yeah, this one I noticed. No disrespect to left and what plans of making UK the next Bangladesh. Oh यार वो प्लान नहीं है, वो तो ऑलरेडी रियलिटी हो रहा है, तो टेंशन मत लो उसकी. ठीक है. That is coming up to be a reality already. Maya ji, I wanted to take this thing. I'm not happy with the interview. This person is talking about Roman generals getting their cottons from Bangla when there was no Bangla. It was all Akhand Bharat. Please acknowledge your roots. That's what happens when you forget your roots. आपको दिख रहा होगा ना? Now, this is what you see. This is exactly what happens to you when you lose your roots. एंड यही चीज मैं बोलता रहता हूँ भाई, नेवर लूज योर रूट्स. अपना सनातन धर्मा एंड इट्स वैल्यूज मस्ट ऑलवेज बी देयर, अदरवाइज वी विल लैंड अप लाइक दिस. आप ये लेफ्टीज लिब्रांडूस को देखिए, दे forgot their roots, and when you forget their roots, there you go. That's what happens. No country can survive like that. आप look at the Southeast Asia, they may be Muslim countries now, but बड़ा क्लियरली वो बोलते हैं भैया वी वर हिंदूज बिफोर, एंड दे रिकग्नाइज दैट. उनके करेंसीज, उनके एयरलाइंस, उनके स्टैचूज, they're unabashedly clear about it. So they develop. When you forget your roots, what happens to you is Pakistan, and that's the problem. uh okay, let's see. All right, let's see forward. Or देखें. अच्छा, by the way guys, tonight is 10 o'clock. I have some insane खबर्स for you as far as crackdown is concerned. So जरा 11-10 बजे, 11 10 से 11 बजे तक अपने आप को पूरी तरह से फ्री रखना है. आज क्रैकडाउन इज देयर एंड सम वेरी इनसेन थिंग्स. कहीं पे मैं आज थोड़ा क्रिटिसिज्म भी करूंगा, बट जो चीजें मेरे को दिखी हैं और मिली हैं, माय 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 माय, वेरी वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. सो आज रात को जरा जरूर अपने अपने आप को फ्री रखिएगा. फ्राइडे नाइट्स इज क्रैकडाउन नाइट. ऑलराइट, my email id, अरस साहब, my email id is there in the description, so आप वहां से ले सकते हैं. Okay, our agencies could not purchase. You don't purchase armies, sir. Armies are not for sale, except the Pakistani army, of course. देखिए यार, ऐसा है, sometimes you need to let things happen in a place for them to learn their own lessons. Sometimes you need to do that. And देखिए, you can say कि भाई India could have done this, that and the other. Look at it from this aspect. अभी त्रिपुरा से देखिए कितना फ्लड आ रहा है. Let's say you would have taken military action, गुस्से में आपने ले भी लिया होता, you would have been in deep problems, absolute deep problems with this whole flood and all that nonsense right now. So you know, that becomes a bit of a challenge. Bangladesh hates us more than Pakistan. No point giving aid to them. I think I agree with that. Okay. आई थिंक मिली जी आप बहुत गुस्सा हो रही थी. ठंडे हो जाओ यार, सुनो, कोई बात नहीं, डजंट मैटर, यू माइट नॉट एग्री, दैट्स ओके. ओके. Matter of 6 months, but trouble for Hindus. If others starve, let them. Iron Lady imposed special tax on us to help Bangladesh. Yeah, you're at least not sitting in those terrible situations. Why hasn't there been any noise by diaspora about the atrocities on Hindus by Bangladesh? 10 million affected since 1950. Ma'am, this time there is avaz. There are protests, there is this, there is that, whole lot of stuff which is happening. Okay? So there is this time there is आवाज, ऐसी बात नहीं है. All right, and I am going to take two more questions to bring this show to an end. Jamaat-e-Islami has infiltrated Bangladeshi Defense Force years ago. It's a jihadi force, otherwise Hasina would still have been there. Absolutely correct. There is no question about it. I mean, ये जो मैंने आपको बताया कि भाई बांग्लादेश चीफ के ऊपर काफी प्रेशर आया था, this is something which is very very clear, right? He got a lot of pressure and he was literally forced to take the action because the ground level soldiers were refusing to listen to the leadership of the army. And last question that I will take is wait. Not in Malaysia, Aadi. Indonesia also. Malaysia, they do to a certain extent. Even Philippines and all that stuff. It's not open. ठीक है, मलेशिया इज अ लिटिल, थोड़ा सा महातिर मोहम्मद की जगह आने के बाद काफी गड़बड़ हो गई थी उधर पे. So in any case, all right, thank you so much, guys. I have to now collect a lot of things for Crackdown, so I'm going to take your leave and I'll see you at 10 o'clock tonight. Thank you for watching, and please, please, please like and comment before you leave the show. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.